My name is Mureithi. I'm a budget facilitator from Laikipia County, and I'm going to be taking you through today's session. So today we are going to cover the CBROP, which is the County Budget Outlook Review, CBROP County Budget Review and Outlook paper. So allow me to share my screen so that we can start. You can see my screen. So
yes,
we are starting now. So we are going to start with a review of the budget calendar. For those who are joining us for the first time, we have already covered the budget making process, the stages and the documents involved briefly. And then we started delving into the budget documents individually. So I want us to walk through the journey up to where CBROP is by reviewing the budget calendar. So I hope you can see the calendar. We have also shared it in our WhatsApp group. You can feel free to open kama hauoni calendar. So I hope you can see it. Let me try zooming kidogo. So this coil-like image is a representation of our budget making process in a calendar way. So the blue color represents the budget formulation stage. So ideally, the budget making process happens in 4 key stages, which is the formulation stage. And in the formulation stage, the budget making process starts with the release of the budget circular. So this happens in the 30th of August, whereby the circular is released by the county treasury. And then after the circular, we have the annual development plan. For those who didn't join us last time, that is the document we covered. So the annual development plan is tabled in the County Assembly at the 1st of September. And ideally, the ADP is a whole year plan that is extracted from the mega 5-year plan that Sosten taught us last time, which is the CIDP in full, the County Integrated Development Plan. So we have an extract entailing the priorities and projects and everything we intend to prioritize for that financial year. And then from the ADP, we get to that which is in the 1st of September, we go to 21st of October. The next major document is now what you're covering today, which is the County Budget Review and Outlook paper, the CBROP. And then from CBROP all the way to January, the Commission of Revenue Allocation, najua mumesikia CRA sana, wanapeana recommendation on how for that financial year we are going to divide revenue. So when we mention revenue, we have many sources of revenue that our counties depend on. So ideally, what we majorly depend on as a county is the national transfer, which in other words is the equitable share. And that happens within the month of January. So the next budget document that you will interact with after the CBROP, which is now called the County Fiscal Strategy paper. And this is tabled in the County Assembly at February 28th and should be approved within March 15th. And again, the next document you will interact with is the budget estimates. So hapa kwa mnaona April 30th, we have the tabling of the budget estimates. And then in other words, it's presented in a program-based format. Ndio inakuja inakuwa, you will hear people refer it to the program-based budgets, the PBB. And then ikipitishwa nayo inaitwa the Appropriation Act, which allows the counties to now start spending their monies. And then that is the formulation stage in a nutshell. So munaona the next color hapa, which is green, should be green, is the approval stage. Alafu budgeti hapo ikishapitishwa, we now start spending. So financial year inaishia hapo kwa 30th the 30th of June. And then now the yellow bits implementation, which is ideally us now using the budget. Budget imekuja back to the county departments. We are now allowed to use the budgets. And then the red color huku mwisho ni the audit stage, which is ideally us reviewing how was this money spent? Was it spent in a prudent way? So in a nutshell, that's the budget making process. And now mahali tulianzia with Anita's session was this, but in depth. And now we went to the ADP, which is on 1st of September. And now today we are at CBROP. So if you're joining us for the first time, hapo ndio tumefika. We are now discussing the CBROP. So CBROP ni the County Budget Review and Outlook paper, as I said, and it's usually prepared by the County Treasury, guided by the law, Mambo ya Sheria Constitution, under the PFM Act, which is in section 118. And it's after Treasury may prepare, they submit it to the CEC, wa planning, and it naifai exit 30th September kama haja submit. So right now we are, today is on date 18. So in our heads, tuna imagine county treasury size, they should be preparing the document to anticipate for them to ipeane kwa CEC wa finance by 30th of September. And then the CEC role yake hapa ni ku-review na kuiona kai kwa sawa. So he has a time frame of 14 days. So ideally by October 14th, that is by 14th October, anafaa kuwa ame-review na amepeana recommendation na adjustments. So within 7 days, after CEC amepeana your document, the Treasury now wakona the opportunity to take the document to the County Assembly, which is ideally by 21st of October. So when you hear us say that the document is tabled by 21st of October, this is what we mean. Taking the recommendations from the CEC, ndio sasa imefika kwa assembly where it's being tabled and then made available to the public by 1st of November. So that is where our mind should channel towards CBROP. Last month to experience the annual development plan. So we're going to go into the main components of CBROP. So ideally, the County Budget Review and Outlook paper, in a serve, it's a document you will see in two of the budget stages. We have it in the formulation stage, yenye sahizi tuko. We are now formulating the financial year 2026-27. So you will see it in the formulation stage. In the instance that inatueleza how the future will look like in the outlook bits. You see the name CBROP ikona review and outlook. So review part in a review the year that has just ended. So in terms of expenditure performance, revenue vile tumeperform down to the department level. And now we go to the... yes.
Yes. Is it possible to do slideshow? Some people saying,
yeah. Sure. Sorry, I forgot to do that.
And also, Nelson, are you able to see the sign language interpreter? Annie?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Sorry for that. So, as I was saying, iko kwa stages mbili. So here we get to see a review of how we performed and then an outlook of what the future will look like. So hapo tutafikia. So ideally, kuna hiyo part ya a component, which is the previous year's review, and then an update on economic performance. This should be performance, an update on how the economy is doing, and then the kind of influence of what has been happening in the economy related to affect like the current year, and then of course the review of revenue and expenditure, and then we get to see a component of provisional ceilings. So by the time provisional namaanisha see the final ceilings, it's just like a projection, like we tuna estimate kuspend na kupata. The word ceiling is the maximum allocation that can go to every department wakati tuna budget. So we have the overall estimation ya budget, and then down to the department level. So we get to see provisional ceilings going down to the department level, and then the final ceiling, ile pesa ya mwisho yenye mtadiscuss kwa budget mahali itaenda in our departments, is set kwa document inaitwa County Fiscal Strategy Paper, the CFSP, and that decision is made in February, as you've seen it in the budget calendar, and that will be covered by Chris Kuria in the next session. So again, when you're analyzing your CBROP now, umefungua your CBROP, imekuwa made available to the public, this is what you look out for. So number one, you look at the revenue and expenditure performance. And then, so I'm going to just mention them as components, and then we'll discuss them like deeper. So number one is revenue and expenditure performance. So you get to review how in the previous year county yako imeperform in terms of revenue. Did it meet the targets zenye zilikuwa zimeset? Kama ni OSR, kama ni, did they receive like the whole share from the national government? If it's conditional grants, how much did we get? And then we have a component on, so national transfer, the same thing, equitable share, and then OSR performance. And then we get to see emerging issues. Since last year, wakati tuliset the final ceilings, tukapitisha budget, we started using the budget. Ni nini imetokea mpya yenye hatukuwa tumeanticipate. So that's the emerging issues and how are they affecting our budget implementation. Kama imeguza service delivery at the county and department levels. And then another component that you should look for when you're analyzing your CBROP is how to perform down to the programs. So ideally, when you're tracking the performance or the state of projects that have been done, you will find it within programs that are within sub-programs that are within programs. So ideally, budgets inapangangwa through the program-based budget format. See itemized. So the good thing about that program-based budget, we get to seriously see how like the final product, the goal yako ya spend on a certain thing within the budget ilikuwa nini. So you will be able to trace that within the programs. And then, of course, you will see sector program level performance. And then if your county for that specific year walikuwa na supplementary budget, that is something you'll be able to analyze when you look for your budget. And then fiscal responsibility, we'll get to that in the subsequent slides. So I'm going to start with performance of revenue and expenditure. So as I said earlier, our counties rely so much from national transfers. So basically our sources of revenue as counties ni kadhaa. So number one, we rely on transfers from the national government, which is called the equitable share. And there's a formula that determines how counties receive money from the national government. So ideally, that is one of our sources of revenue. And then counties have the ability to raise money within their own boundaries or borders. So this is what we call the own source revenue. Na tutaiona in the subsequent slides. So this is sales, business permits, and whatnot. Zote zikiwa totaled, hiyo ni one of our sources of revenue. And then we have the conditional grants. Conditional grants is the sort of money you get probably from donors ama pia from the national government yenye inakuja na masharti ya vile itatumiwa. So if you're given this amount of money, imekuja specific for roads, that is a revenue that should be used for that specific purpose. So ideally, CBROP itatueleza details about how we've performed in terms of revenue and expenditure. So by the time tuna get to interact with CBROP, we've already gone past 4 months in our budget implementation. So it's a sort of update yenye ungepata kwa implementation reports. Again, a different kind of budget document that will be discussed later. So tunasonga tuna cycle. So we should get to see an update of hizi pesa zimekuwa zikiingiaje, how have we been receiving the money? And I have, okay, it's still the same as we should get to see how conditional transfers zinatoka from the national government. So ideally, kama kuna grants zinaingia kwa county, we should get to see kama we met the target. So when we are planning budgets, we get to set targets ya zile pesa tu. So if it's CBROP, we expected amount X. So kama haikukuja ikiwa X, if we, for instance, wanted to work with roughly a figure like, say 800 M for a specific thing, that is what we anticipated for as a county. CBROP itatuambia, did we receive the whole share? And if not, what was the cost? What was the difference? And probably why? So CBROP pia will tell us if the grants were spent for the intended purpose. And if hizo conditions zenye zilikuwa set for the transfers were met. So ideally, when you're checking out the conditional transfers, check pia for the growth trends of conditional grants for the previous years zimekuwa zikiingiaje. So for this, I attached an extract from CBROP ya Wajir County 2023. So this was mentioned also earlier. So Budgeti Hub does a survey on budget transparency. We do research around our budget documents. We check for various components, one of them being comprehensiveness. So CBROP, the one that we saw as the most comprehensive, and this is guided by the provisions in the Public Finance Management Act, that CBROP ya Wajir ndio ilikuwa among the best. So I took an extract to show us vile we should see, like an example of how revenue information inafaa ikuwe presented. So this is an extract from that document. So the first bit mali nime-highlight na pink, which says the county government received a total revenue of 11.15 billion. So yote in total, Wajir County ili receive that figure of 11.15 billion in 2023. And out of this, kulikuwa na 9.47 ya equitable share. Again, I said counties rely heavily on national transfers on equitable share. So unaona, like out of 11.15, equitable share was 9.47. And then again, we had 773 million, which was conditional grant from development partners, very specific from development partners. And then we have 47 million, which was raised within the county, which we call the own source revenue. And then the remaining detail of 855 million balance from which was previously in the county revenue fund account. So yeah, this performance is against 11.23 billion, which was set. So ideally, CBROP itakwambia tulikuwa tumeset which amount na tukapata ngapi. So on this table, the first one on your left, depending on below umeketi, we have a table 5. It may break down revenue sources. And then kwa estimates tulikuwa tumepitisha ngapi. And then the next column is the actual money received. And then tofauti, the difference between the approved and what was actually received. So again, it's the same narrative information now broken down into a table. We get to see the figures for equitable share. So the money that eventually came, there was a surplus of 2. So ideally, the money we expected as equitable share from Wajir, iyo ilifika as they hoped for, and we had a surplus kidogo. And on local revenue, this is again the OSR. Tunaona we hoped to receive, which is this figure, haina commas, 46.7, but then hatuku get, so ideally, they never got the target. They only achieved 47% of what they hoped for. And this means that probably for that year we are reviewing, the performance ilikuwa affected. The services provision was affected because, for instance, it's like, wewe ulikuwa umebudgetia, say, I'm going to be a girl, tuseme, for this year, I want to, for this month, niko na like 10K. Nina hope to work with 10K to get my nails done, nishukwe nywele vizuri, and probably get an outfit. I could even go like further to what men do. Probably kuna a shoe you've been eyeing. You wanted to work with amount X, alafu kibahati nzuri ama mbaya pesa yako ichelewe kufika, you only managed to get probably half of the money. So inamaanisha you as a girl, something has to forgo. You maybe hautatengeneza nails for that month. So it's the same as the same na counties. Kama muli expect to get this amount of money ikose kufika, of course tutakuwa affected in terms of service delivery if that money was going towards a development expenditure. Ideally, we have two types of expenditure. Kuna recurrent, yenye ita keep on recurring, lead to acquisition of like a long-term assets. So recurrent ina go to salaries, maintenance, izo sort of expenditure kwa counties, and then development ina lead to acquisition of long-term assets. It could be roads, inaweza kuwa the purchase of ambulances in our health departments, something long-term yenye to serve long-term. So it means that for that specific time when we set unrealistic goals, because for them, I'd think this is unrealistic. What do you mean you only achieved to collect 47% of what we hoped for? So it leads to stalling of projects, etc. And that is why it's important for us to check these documents. As we are formulating now, the year that you're formulating now, if you get to see wame project pesa yenye hawakuweza hata collect last time, you get to question it because eventually it will affect you. So after local revenue, hizi zingine ni conditional transfers, Danida, proportion achieved by 103%, and then Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project, they didn't get the whole amount they expected. It was short by 26.2 million. And then down to other, it's the same as this other table kando yake. So these are other sources of revenue they hope to get for. So in total, in the approved estimates, it was 11.2 billion, but then they ended up working with 11.1. And this means that we had a shortage of 84.9 million for that financial year in Wajir. And then the proportion of achieved was 99% of what they hoped to work with for that specific year. So we're going to go into another component to look out for. This tumeitaja again, local revenue. So for Wajir's case, tuliona ilikuwa short by 47%, and the CBROP should be able to give a justification of why this happened. So you check for the past trends. So in the previous financial years zenye zinatokea kwa hiyo document, waliperform aje. Inaweza kwa a one-time thing. Also, it could be a trend. So ideally, you get to see a justification, and of course, it's given in a narrative form. So I'm going to read the highlighted bit in yellow in the first extract. So the county collected 47% of its OSR, own source revenue, target during the period under review, down from 52% in the previous financial year. So again, tumepata the trend in narrative from. So the decrease in own source revenue is mainly attributed to prolonged drought, hampering collection from livestock sector. So Wajir for that specific financial year, the reason why hawaku meet targets according to him, it's because kulikuwa na prolonged drought. Ika affect how they collect revenue from livestock sector. And again, on Mirases during that financial year, during the financial year, as well as inadequate legal and policy framework to enforce the administration of some key revenue streams. So again, they had legal challenges in revenue collection. So when you check your CBROP on your end, when you're doing analysis on your own, you get to see reasons why, justification, mbona tuliperform poorly in our own source revenue. Again, the next extract that we have here, it's a justification of this of the same. So yeah, I'll not read that in the interest of time, but I hope mume understand hapo kwa local revenue performance. So it's I put again another extract of a table showing the performance. And then on the trend bit here, we have a graph inatuonyesha for the past, how many is this? So for the year under review is financial year 2023-24. And then for the past 1, 2, 3, 4, for the past financial year, munaona the line, hiyo line ya graph imekuwa like more or less constant, inapanda kidogo ikishuka, but then we see them setting the projection ya financial year 2023-24 iko huko juu. They hope to collect 200 million within their own localities, and yet for the previous financial year walikuwa wameset 46. So as a resident in Wajir, you should ask yourself, is this realistic? So me, I'll not answer for them as a Laikipian sijui. So we are going to go to the next slide. So this is another extract from the same document. So your CBROP, it makes sense now mbona Wajir waliperform vizuri, because wametueleza, break down the kind of revenue collected down to individual revenue streams. So this is like imeratiwa quarterly in every, it's rated quarterly, I hope. And then for financial year 2022-23, so in their revenue bucket as a county, the money they collect from stock auction fees, stock export fees, we get to see slaughter fees, and then Arabic gum, mi hiyo sijui ni nini, but for that period under review iliwapatia 700 and again 700, so that's 1400. We get to see mirases, we see single business permits, we see septic tank, conservancy, interesting, I didn't know Wajir wako na conservancy, and then land rent, and then house rent, survey fee, water, building materials, whatnot. I hope you're looking at the screen. So here, a little exercise for you on your end. Uangalie ni from this table, ni nini ilipatia Wajir the most money. Oftentimes we get to see single business permits zikichukuliwa sana, especially in the beginning part of the year, and when it's low we should get to see justification. So in your end unaweza niambia ni gani hiyo ili collect the most, and you put it in the chat box. So yeah, I'm going to go to the next slide in the interest of time. You'll get to discuss that further in the breakout rooms. So yeah, another component is total expenditure performance and at department level. So it's not enough for CBROP to tell us that in that financial year, the total expenditure ilikuwa X, and then wame split to recurrent and development, alafu imeishia hapo. No, it should break this down to the department level. So ideally, CBROP reviews previous year's expenditure performance, compare na the target set. So low absorption, of course, low absorption, it affects service delivery, because mukipanga budget that time menye mulipanga, it was meant to enhance service delivery in the county and development. So anytime kuna low absorption ya budget, we need to see explanation. Again, this I had mentioned. So as CBROP starts, okay, Nanzanga, CBROP starts the conversation on provisional ceiling that will be concluded next year. So saizi tukiset provisional ceilings in October, the conversation on ceilings itafungiwa kabisa when we get the final county fiscal strategy paper that will be discussed in the next class by Chris. So it's important for us to calculate the amount of money that is being spent in the sectors in that year that you are reviewing, in the next financial year that you are formulating, to see set and realistic sector ceilings. So this is an extract of the same from the Wajir document. So I forgot to add the financial year on top, but the outer one should be provisional ceilings, and then hizi zingine ziko huku mwanzo ni already zenye zilikuwa set in the previous documents. So down to the department level, wame split expenditure from recurrent to development, and then the revised estimates, and then what was actually spent na percentage absorption rate. So departments in Wajir, of course, we have the money spent within county assembly, county executive, down to the finance and economic planning department, and then to public health, medical services and sanitation, road and transport department, down to all other departments that we have. So ideally, your CBROP in a file breakdown expenditure down to department level. So again, another component is sector and program level performance. So CBROP itatueleza how the budget, it's a report on how the budget was spent program-wise, because tukipanga budget, tunaipanga in a program-based manner. So it should give us justification for good or poor performance at program and sub-program level. So why did we have like good performance, for instance, I'm going to take a random sub-program that could be RAMCA, which is the reproductive maternal, iyo program yenye iko na all maternal health, child, adolescent, family planning, everything matters. So if there was a poor performance of expenditure, kunafaa kuwa na justification, ni nini ili affect the whole process. So another component hapa ni fiscal responsibility. So ideally, hizi ni sheria zenye zina tell us, zina govern how we plan our PFM, public finance management. So without these acts or this ni kama sheria, I don't know how counties will work. Do we have the discipline to ensure that money is spent well? So ideally, such rules ni kama 30%, at least 30% of the expenditure require development. So we have several such. So the why these things are important, they help us work on our spending limits. So for instance, the law saying recurrent spending is exit the total revenue. And then, as I said, a minimum of 30% being allocated to development. So tukipanga budget inaweza kuwa tuli follow, and then some things happened in between. We had some reallocations, it can affect, but ideally 30% should go to development. So again, this fiscal responsibilities help us control borrowing within our counties, and then revenue and risk management. So I took an extract from Wajia's CBROP on page 17, and I'll read it as quoted. As explained in other chapters of this paper, expenditure on development was below the 30% threshold, occasioned by higher allocations to recurrent expenditure towards response to emergencies following the prolonged drought in the period under review. So it means they never met the threshold, reason being drought. So recurrent expenditure ilikuwa mob, probably with buying, I don't know what they buy. In other instances, we see people give some sort of peanuts zenye zinasaidia watu kurudisha energy haraka. So probably food, that is recurrent expenditure wakati wana distribute raw things. So ideally we have hizi sheria zina limit, zina to guide us so that we can have equitable development. Yeah, so that's on fiscal responsibility. So when you open your CBROP, when you get your free time, you should get to see kama county imejicommit who work within your framework ya sheria. So another thing you should look out for when you're analyzing your CBROP ni kama county yenyu ilikuwa na supplementary budgets in that year that you are reviewing. So it's common for original budgets kuwa amended. So kama county yenyu hiyo mwaka ilikuwa na a supplementary budget, we should get to see a justification and probably a point out on where the deviation came from. So again, this is an extract from the Wajir CBROP. So I'll read it. A supplementary, on the highlighted bit though, a supplementary budget was approved in September 2023 by the County Assembly. The supplementary budget was necessitated by the need to adjust and approve the balance brought forward. So as a result of this, the county's OSR is expected to slow. Yeah, we have a whole lot of explanation. So in our breakout rooms and probably in your own free time, you'll get to discuss this further. You'll get to check your document kama ilikuwa na supplementary budget. So another thing we get to see from your CBROP is emerging issues. So ideally, on the expenditure review bit, kuna matters that zilikuwa unforeseen when you are formulating the budget. Wakati tulikuwa tunapitisha CFSP, tukiset your county fiscal strategy paper, tukiset the final ceiling, the maximum amount going to every department, many things zinaweza kuwa zimechange down to the time when we are producing this document. So ideally, emerging issues inaweza affect economic and financial outlook, and such could be inflations, interest rates, exchange rates, fluctuation, fuel prices. And then, for instance, when we've had long-term demonstrations, of course, it'll affect revenue collection, and then pandemic. So an extract of the same, inflation has dampened economic activities in the county. In the financial year 2022-23, the county government only generated 46 million compared to 52 million in the same period of the previous financial year. The main streams of OSR shrunk. So a whole lot of details happen. So sometimes emerging issues enable counties to justify the need for them to do a supplementary budget. So that's on emerging issue that will be discussed further. Mtaelewa the more you open these documents. And again, this is from a different document. Link matters that affected the county from the national outlook. So ideally the economy, so that extract from Nyeri County CBROP 2024. The Kenya economy is currently recovering from significant and persistent shocks that had adverse structural effects on economic activities. We see the document mentioning the ongoing Eastern Europe and Middle East conflicts. So ideally, zinafaa interconnect on how ina affect budget implementation and absorption. So that's it on emerging issues. And again, it's a wrap for that, but we'll have breakout rooms. So vile umeangalia your presentation, you can see kwa formulation, when we are setting the provisional ceilings, we see CBROP hapo. Iko interlinked again to evaluation, because tunaweza ku-evaluate how did revenue perform, how was our expenditure, and then we get to see a component on implementation stage. Imetueleza the challenges zenye counties wamepitia waki implement the budget, and then on the final stage of the budget making process, which is the audit or oversight stage, we get to review revenue and expenditure performance for the previous financial year. So importance of CBROP again, inatusaidia ku set provisional. Don't forget it's provisional, it's not the final ceiling. The final ceiling ni kwa county fiscal strategy paper. So it a guide sector hearings, because all through between November to January, after November 1st, the latest date when public wanafaa get to see their CBROP, kutakuwa na sector hearings. So these are hearings held at sector level, where CSOs, group and special interest groups and citizens get to have hearings at sector level, where they try and bid for their sector, why they should get more resources and why. And by the time tunafika February again, ndio to set now the final ceilings. And then the CBROP is important because in a link budget stages, we get to review the past and see how it affects the present, at the same time set the future. And then it promotes transparency, accountability, and openness, because hapa mna get a chance hadi ku get into a look of how budget vile revenue imekuwa collected down to individual revenue streams. So I think it's time we go to our breakout rooms. As Nelson alikuwa, ceiling is the same as target. So Angela, ceiling ni, okay, it's more or less the same, but ideally ceiling ni the maximum amount inaweza enda kwa health. Ceiling ni kama the actual ceiling ya nyumba. You cannot go, uwezi ruka like uende above the ceiling. So hiyo ni mwisho. So it's the maximum amount yenye inaweza enda kwa health. So kwa context ya CBROP ina set provisional ceilings, like see the final ceilings will be wrapped up in the CFSP. So okay. Wajir being a Muslim community, they don't take alcohol. So the reason for Mira, yeah, of course. So, okay. So I think we should wrap this up. It's already 9:04. So I'm going to give it back to Nelson. Nelson, if you're still with us.
Yeah. Great. Umemaliza?
Nimemaliza.
Thanks. So, thank you, Mary. Mary Mureithi from Budget Facilitator Laikipia County. For those wenye wanaona button ya kureact na makofi, unaweza react na makofi. So that was well done. So your key takeaway from today is that you may not have interacted with the CBROP, the County Budget Review and Outlook paper, because it's mainly an information document, mainly for the assembly and for the citizens. So it doesn't come for public participation. But at national level, I'm sure you've heard about sector hearings that usually happen at KICC around January. So at counties, you're supposed to also have sector hearings. And the document that you're supposed to use for those sector hearings is actually the annual development plan and your county budget review and outlook paper. When you have those two documents, you're able as a sector to sit down and generate what we call sector reports. But we will have that conversation further down the line. So this is a very important document. You may need to look for yours, for your counties and see what it says about the performance, the review of the performance of the previous financial year, and what is being projected towards the next coming year. So to Mary, asante sana, to the team at the back end, the facilitators of the breakout sessions, asanteni sana, to all of you, asanteni sana. We'll see you next week, same time, God willing, for the county fiscal strategy paper. And for there, you'll understand why the CBROP and the CFSP have a link or speak to each other. So you'll be able to understand that. So these sessions will be trying to unpack them document per document until mukue munaelewa hii maneno kama the facilitators that you have. Sorry again from us for the extra time, but I think 7 minutes is not too bad. So from us is to say asanteni sana, have a lovely night and a lovely weekend ahead. Thank you so much. You may leave at your own pleasure. Asante sana.
And thank you to the sign language interpreter.
Oh, yes, sorry. So, and Tracy, asante sana for the services.